Well, hey everyone, really excited this week to speak with Noah, who just got an SDR role at Memory Blue. Lots to break down. I know, Noah, you had an awesome ride, kind of ultimately breaking in with Memory Blue. And maybe as a starting point for the conversation, just talking about where you were before looking at tech sales and kind of that decision process to make a transition into tech sales.
Yeah, thanks so much, Chris and Eric, for having me. Definitely excited to get to this point in my journey in tech sales and starting that. Prior to going into tech sales and even joining this cohort in this program, I was actually a banker for 4 years, and so yeah, Chase Bank, and so I was a personal banker, worked my way up as a relationship banker, getting all my licenses from SIA to life insurance series 6 and 63. And, I got to a point where I felt that there was kind of a ceiling to my journey as a banker. And it's so funny. I don't know if I told you guys this prior, but I never actually, I joined another program or a boot camp that was a totally different career. I just wanted to try something new. And I remember I did it back in March or April, and it was the market was tough, and it was actually for quality assurance, and so totally different industry from sales and banking from what I did, but like software testing, and it just didn't pan out the way it did when I started my job search in October and November. And so it just kind of led me to this point where I kind of felt burnt out from a lot of the applying, the job interviews, or not just the job applications that I was submitting every week, like from 30 to 40 a week. It was insane. I couldn't imagine. I couldn't even tell you guys how many applications I've submitted up until like the end of November, and I just was like, I needed a break. And so I just remember like coming to terms with myself and thinking like, okay, what should I do next? Obviously, I wanted to shift into something where obviously was a very lucrative career that was very meaningful and everything else like that. And I came across higher levels. Actually, before that, I came across course careers first, and so I came. There was a content creator. I think his name is Brent. I know he's like kind of the head of course careers, and came across his content on YouTube and going through his story, and it was very inspirational. And just thought like this is a very popular course. But before I decided I wanted to join, I wanted to do my due diligence and make sure like if this was going to be the right investment for me to take, and if it was going to be the right career path. And so because it was very broad as far as course careers, I mean, I know their tech sales program. From what I've heard from reviews, that a lot of students were having trouble finding roles, and at least at the time when I was looking around. And so, yeah, I just kind of did some more digging, and then for some odd reason, I came across higher levels, and so I was like, oh, okay, this is pretty unique, and it's a program that solely focuses on tech sales, and so I was like, okay, great. And I remember end of December, it was like right after Christmas. I had shot an email to Eric. I was kind of skeptical. I was like, oh man, I don't know if I should do this, but Eric, you were so open and receptive to my message, and you got back to me immediately. And even though I know it was the holidays, New Year's was just coming around, and you definitely cleared up all the concerns that I had regarding like why it is that I could have taken a route on my own in figuring it out myself, but just hearing your journey and your path from I guess you had to figure it out essentially before you met Chris, and you guys had created this program, and it took some time, right? And so I remember you shared that perspective with me, and it honestly it struck a chord, because it's like, okay, I could my whole thought process was I could like take 6 or 7 months and figure this out. But then, you were like, you can honestly condense it. You have the, people that have gone before you, and the resources and the tools and the content. And so that's kind of the story, and how I've came across higher levels, and my journey, prior to that. So.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And I know I remember our conversation initially before you joined, and I think that's a great analogy. Is like, Chris and I are both former athletes, but at the same time, for us, we're busy now with other obligations and things we have going on. So I think, what we talked about is kind of like hiring a personal trainer. Even though we are athletes and know how to train ourselves, there's a lot of value in having someone putting on a platter exactly what we need to do. We show up and we just execute on what they're giving us. I am curious too, kind of along with that evaluation process. I'm sure Chris will have more questions too, but you yourself, did you immediately look for a boot camp before tech sales, or had you also started applying for SDR roles before even looking at training in the first place?
It's a great question. I think looking back, I don't recall. Actually, I did. And what's so funny is that, and honestly, it was another reason why I needed to take on this course, because I was actually applying to account executive roles, and so not having any prior information, or just aware about like how the career journey projects for SDRs to then or BDRs to then account executives, and so I was just skipping a step without even realizing it, and so and it's really cool to hear that. Like I remember, Eric, you were talking about like building the foundation, and building your career and starting out as an SDR or BDR, and why that it's important to understand that whole process, because the AE role definitely will come, and so but I think that's why I came across. That was my mistake, essentially, to applying to those AE roles without even knowing that I should have applied for SDR, BDR roles to kind of start from the ground up and build from there.
Nice. I'm curious too. Obviously, like, you've been one of our most active students inside the program, and kudos to you again. Like, I know that you've been absolutely crushing it. I remember like your first interview process with us. I'm not going to name any names, but it was a really, really big logo. And, credit to you, you made it all the way to the final round, which is like absurd. Like, most people don't make it to the final round with like some of the biggest companies in the world. They're like their first time around. But I'm curious, like, looking back at the entire progress and like journey that you've been through now, like, what do you think are some of the most valuable things inside of the course that ultimately led you to, not just like crush the interview processes, but also like land jobs? And obviously you got in with Memory Blue, which is a huge logo. But I'm just curious, like, what do you think was the most valuable parts of the program to you specifically?
Oh man, great question. I think a big thing would be, I remember there were times where I was, going back to certain videos, and honestly, it's probably the newer content that you guys released, which was the workbook. Complete game changer. I mean, I think it was right around the time that I, wasn't selected as the candidate for the position at the company, and I remember that you and Eric were rolling the workbook out, and that was, gosh, I mean, I couldn't recommend that enough to anyone that takes this course. Is that the workbook, and being able to like understand, okay, this is how the companies that you're applying to, and what to say, the questions to ask, and I think it just helped me kind of simplify my process. And obviously, and with the help of Eric, I know, and we've been talking about like how to navigate, like, even with the companies that I've been applying to, and I think that was just a huge thing. I for sure is the workbook, but and obviously with the help, like I said, with Eric and some other students that have taken the course as well, they've been a huge help. Absolutely. So, but networking, yeah.
Nice. No, we love it. I mean, it's kind of like what Eric was saying. We can give you the recipe, but ultimately, like, you guys are the chefs. You got to take all the ingredients, put them in, make it your own dish. So hats off to you. Like, I know that you really put in the work, and just because like you have the framework and you have the step-by-step instructions doesn't necessarily mean, like, there's lots of nuances as well that go into this entire process, right? Like, there's a lot of things that we can't account for. I am curious too, like, on that note, was there anything particularly that was like challenging to you throughout the interview processes with different companies? Like, was there anything that like stumbled you, or like maybe even questions? Or, I mean, this is a wide open answer or a question. Just curious, like, if there was something in particular where you felt like, oh, I needed to overcome this to sort of like get to a point where now was consistently crushing interviews, which I know that you were doing in the end. So just curious if there's anything particular there.
Yeah, honestly, Chris, it was, I think even to the point where I eventually got the role, I was still struggling with how to respond to the last assignment. So even with the first company, the big logo that I was going after and wasn't selected for, there was a PowerPoint presentation or a slideshow that I had to present. And honestly, I just remembered like reaching out to Eric and other students, and I just didn't have like the framework or the answers to look for when it came to the content of the what was I assigned to do, which was essentially like figuring out the prospect and how to research companies, and and honestly, it was a lack on my end. It was definitely a lack of like I should have taken more time and going back to your guys' content videos with higher levels and understanding how to research companies very well, going through LinkedIn or going through their 10K, statements. And I was kind of like analysis paralysis. I was just overanalyze everything, and just I needed some help and needed some different perspectives. And so that was definitely a big weakness, even up until Memory Blue. And I remember even Chris, I was talking to you, and we had our Tuesday call, and I remember I sent my script and I shared it with you, and you were like, okay, maybe we can attack this from a different angle. And honestly, it cleared up so much, as far as like how to answer, or respond to those questions or the proposal that I was, responding to. So I think that was a big thing for me. But yeah, I don't think I had to figure it out even up until the very end. And honestly, if it wasn't for you guys, that's why, the process for me would have taken a lot longer had I not taken higher levels, for sure. Because it was the mentorship, the perspectives, the community. Yeah, I couldn't have done it without you guys, for sure. So yeah, kudos to you guys. So.
No, we appreciate it, but obviously kudos to you. And I think, we don't shy away from the fact that honestly getting in a couple of interviews and potentially failing early on is one of the best things you can do, in addition to, what we've laid out and kind of how we assist throughout that process. You have to face reality and get out there. And that's honestly some of the best ways to learn. And maybe on that note too, I just be curious, looking back on the whole process, for anyone, whether they're looking into training or not, maybe they just need advice and they're trying to break into tech sales. Is there any advice or things you would do differently in hindsight that you could give someone that's watching this?
Yeah. I don't know if I would change anything differently, Eric, but I certainly would ask questions. I would make sure that you are doing your due diligence and making sure that you are picking the right course for you, and asking the hard questions. Don't be afraid or shy away, especially as if you're looking to get into tech sales. A lot of what it is that you do is that you're prospecting and you're asking questions, right? And so don't be afraid to do that. And I think you guys are, like I said, have been very receptive and very, very open in your inbox, and it's amazing to have that kind of access to you guys. And I understand you guys are very busy in your own to your own rights. And I mean, like you guys you've been former athletes and kind of grinded your way, to the point where you guys are at today, and being able to mentor, I think is huge. And so, yeah, I think it's just a matter of like, asking the right questions and knowing that you're not afraid to shy away from that, to help alleviate those concerns that you have, for sure. So, but I don't know if that answers your question. If it does, or any clarification, or
yeah, no, definitely.
Cool.
I think that's solid. No, I know. I mean, again, huge congrats just on everything. Like I mentioned, you've been a rock inside the community. So I think Memory Blue is extremely lucky to have you. Like, I'm just excited to see, where your journey takes you from here. I have no doubt in my mind that you're going to become a top performer, absolutely crush it, and even, go on to become an account executive. So I don't know if you have any famous, last words, or if there's anything else that you feel like would be particularly impactful for somebody else, maybe your younger self or whatever else out there. But anything you want to leave people with, any golden nuggets or anything?
Yeah, I mean, just be just be a student. Just be a student, a lifelong learner, a student in life. I think like you never have it figured out. I think if I were to tell my younger self, like, you don't have it all figured out yet. You know what I mean? And I think as I get older, like there's so much more to learn, and there's not a cap to the information or knowledge or perspectives that you'll come across in your life. And it's always seeking, for that, so that you can better yourself, and in turn, impart to others. And so I think for me, it's not what we learn, but it's what we impart to others for sure. And I think it's people appreciate that, and that's what you guys have essentially done, at this stage in your guys' life, and paying it forward. And if anyone ever reaches out to me, I mean, I understand and know where I was at, at one point in my life, and now, being able to like share that with other people. I look forward to that, for sure. But it's also like there's so much more other things to learn too, and so I'm certainly looking forward to all of it. But hopefully that answers your question, Chris. But can't wait to take the next step in the journey, and hopefully very soon the SDR Accelerator program. I would certainly want to be a top performer, like you said, Chris, and just eager and just motivated for sure. So yeah, I'm excited.
No, it's awesome to hear, man. I think I draw a lot of analogies to that too. I usually like to tell people, like, tech sales or even sales in general is getting into really uncomfortable situations, and I look at it as like self-development in disguise. And I think, like, kudos to you. You went through a really tough rejection initially with a really, really like big logo that a lot of people want to get into, but you turned it around and you still ended up at like arguably like, if not an even bigger logo. So like, again, huge congrats to you, Noah. It's been a pleasure having you inside the community. Thanks for like taking the time to like not just help us make the community a better place, but also like helping other students inside the community. So super excited for you, but appreciate you taking the time. And yeah, stoked to see where you go from here.